Hello, Paulo Leite here, record collector. On this video, I want to show you some amazing albums that I got this week. You can think of them as my personal suggestion for albums and artists that I think you should rediscover. Starting with Blue 1985 by Double. Now, Double was a duo of amazing Swiss musicians Kurt Malou and Felix Hogg. They were together previously on different bands, and they did some recordings that I think had some legal problems that could not be released. But anyway, as musicians, they had some moderate success on their careers until they founded Double, and they hit the ground with this album and the main song that was available here, titled The Captain of Her Heart. This was a big international hit back in 1985 that played everywhere. And you couldn't go in 1985 and listen to a radio and not catching this song. And the song is absolutely beautiful. In my opinion, one of the best songs from the 80s. And this album is relatively hard to find because it was released, I think, in the 90s. It was re-released once, I think, around 2000. And I think it hasn't been re-released ever since. Or if it has been re-released, it was in very small quantities. And so this is kind of hard to find, and I'm very happy I got it. And actually, I have here the very first edition of the album on vinyl that I got back in 1985. So it's a beautiful album, and I think everybody should listen to it. Double released a second album in 1987 that also had great songs, but it couldn't replicate the success of this one. There were, I think, plans for a third album, and they did recording some tracks, but I think they had some disagreements and they ended up going their separate ways. And I think Felix Hogg died when they were ready to resume work years later. And sadly, that album never came to fruition. I think Kurt Malou did release those tracks on his own album. And Kurt Malou is a great artist, and you can check his website and see what he's doing nowadays. But anyway, this is a beautiful album with beautiful tracks like The Captain of Her Heart, the one I was talking about. Also, A Woman of the World, Tomorrow, Rangoon Moon. These are all beautiful songs. The sound of Double is very jazzy, very airy, very spacious. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm very happy with this. I've been looking for this for quite some time, and I finally got it. Great buy. Next, I have for you Mahogany, the original movie soundtrack that was released in 1975. Mahogany is a great movie that I think has been pretty much forgotten nowadays, but the soundtrack is amazing. I think back then Diana Ross was trying to launch her career as an actress. She did, I think, Lady Sings the Blues, the Billie Holiday biopic, I think in 1972. And after this one, 1975, she released The Wiz, whose music was produced by Quincy Jones in 1978, I think. And the rest is history when it comes to Michael Jackson. But this album contains a beautiful soundtrack. It contains that hit song, Do You Know Where You're Going To? That became a huge hit in her career. The CD has an instrumental version of the song, which is beautiful. The Mahogany Suite, and several songs that are very nice. The movie is with Diana Ross, Billy Dee Williams, Anthony Perkins, and Jean-Pierre Aumont. It's a great movie. I think everybody should try to find it. It's also interesting that the song Do You Know Where You're Going To? Diana Ross wasn't the first one to sing that song. Actually, the next album is deeply connected to this one and is Any Way You Like It, 1976, by Thelma Houston. This album contains the hit song Don't Leave Me This Way that became also a big disco hit in the 70s. And it is, I think, one of the best disco songs ever recorded. On this album, we got the full length of that song, which is amazing. But also, this CD contains, as a bonus track, Thelma Houston's version of Do You Know Where You're Going To? The song that was the main song here. There are differences between both songs. Thelma Houston's version is darker, a little bit more bitter, and also beautiful, but in a different way. And I bought this CD because I knew that the song was here as a bonus track, and I really wanted that song. It's interesting that the song, Thelma Houston's version, was released only in New Zealand on a 7-inch in 1973 when she recorded it. And I think Motown canceled the release of that song for some reason. I think they were already planning Diana Ross's version. And actually, I'm sure she was very angry about that. But also, Don't Leave Me This Way has a connection with another Diana Ross song called Love Hangover from 1977. I think Don't Leave Me This Way and Love Hangover are perhaps two of the best disco songs ever written. And they were actually produced by the same record producer, Hal Davis, who produced both songs. And it's funny that both songs, they pretty much start very timidly, very quietly, and then they bloom, they explode on the dance floor, like many disco songs at the time. So this is a great buy, and I'm very happy with it. So, oh, one more thing. Do You Know Where You're Going To is a great song composed by Michael Messer and Gary Goffin, two amazing songwriters who were responsible for a string of hits during the 70s and the 80s. They were amazing songwriters, and they actually wrote another beautiful song amongst so many. One comes to mind, Tonight I Celebrate My Love, by Roberta Flack and Peebo Bryson from 1983, I think. So next, I have for you one of the albums I think is one of the best disco funk albums ever released. It's called Sons of the Gods from 1977 by a band called Ripple. Ripple was an ensemble that was put together by an amazing array of musicians. In 1971, they released, I think it was 1971, they released their first album in 1972 called Ripple. Actually, I bought the CD at Moods Music, a great record shop in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll put the link right here so you can check it. And that album was amazing. And it's sad that they only released two albums, the one from 1972 and this one from 1977. And I think anybody who likes funk and disco should try this one. This album contains beautiful songs, three of the most amazing songs from the 70s. One of my favorite songs called Victorious. It's an instrumental track that is awesome. Also another one, Call Me the Traveling Man, a beautiful ballad. And also one of the biggest disco hits of all time called The Beat Goes On and On, which is also a great disco track. So this is an amazing album, and I've been looking for it for a long time. And I finally got it. Great buy. Next, still on the disco spirit, MFSB. This is a twofer with their two last albums. The Gamble and Huff Orchestra from 1978 and Mysteries of the World from 1980. They both came at the very end of the disco era, but MFSB was an incredible orchestra. It was the orchestra behind Philadelphia Records, and this was recorded, I think, at the legendary Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia. And it contains these two albums, I think, are probably the last hooray of the disco era, and it's an amazing, the two amazing albums, and I'm very happy. So great buy. I'm a big fan of Gamble and Huff. I try to get everything I can find from them because they were an amazing duo of composers and record producers. And everything they did, I think, was incredible. So I'm very happy with this. Next, I have for you Beware of the Beautiful Stranger, 1970 by Pete Atkin. Now, Pete Atkin and his songwriting partner, Clive James, they wrote some incredible songs. It's funny that nowadays, a lot of people talk and say that perhaps the songwriting as an art is dying. I'm not sure if this is true. I think some of it is always true, perhaps, considering the stuff that comes out nowadays and all the amount of great stuff that lies forgotten in vinyl albums and CDs that were released decades ago and nobody cares. And I think this is one of those cases. Pete Atkin and Clive James, they wrote some of the most beautiful songs ever. They released several albums back in the 70s, starting with this one, their first album together, and they released several more albums, and none of them were very successful, which is a shame because here you will find beautiful songs. Beware of the Beautiful Stranger is a great song about a man who goes into a gypsy wagon in a fair, and she tries to con him into meeting a woman on her crystal ball. And it's a very funny song and also incredibly beautiful. But there are more songs here that are worth notice, that you should discover. One is called Touch Has a Memory, a beautiful song, and another one called Sunrise. And this CD comes packed with extras of songs and outtakes that Pete Atkin and Clive James also wrote and recorded. So I think this is a great buy. There are previous versions of this CD without the bonus tracks. You can also find them, and I'm sure those editions, and I'm sure they are cheaper than this one. But I'm a kind of a completist, and whenever I can, I try to buy the most complete versions of those albums. And this one is packed with great stuff, so it's a great buy. Next, I have for you the work of another great songwriter, Gordon Lightfoot, and this CD is a twofer with two of his best albums, both from 1968. The first one called Did She Mention My Name, and the second one, Back Here on Earth. Gordon Lightfoot was an amazing songwriter, and he wrote incredible stuff. And he may not be well known today. I'm sure he is well known in certain circles, especially country music and genres related. But here in Europe, I don't think he is very well known, and he's totally worth rediscovering. If you don't know him, oh, you should, because he wrote great stuff. And this CD contains some of his most beautiful songs. One of my favorite songs ever, The Last Time I Saw Her Face, which is an absolutely beautiful song that was later covered, I think a year or two later, was covered by Glenn Campbell, another great artist, and that version is also beautiful. But the song was written originally by Gordon Lightfoot, and his version I think is still the best. Pussy Willow Cattails is another great song with a beautiful arrangement. Also Black Day in July, a song about racism. Also Affair on 8th Avenue, another beautiful song. So this CD is packed with great stuff, so everybody should listen to these songs because Gordon Lightfoot. Interestingly enough, I also bought this. This is called the United Artists Collection, and it was released in 1993. It contains Gordon Lightfoot's first 4 albums, I think, for United Artists. And it's interesting that these albums are included here. So I ended up buying this one needlessly. I thought this was a larger compilation because I wanted more songs from him. And I didn't pay attention. I was, I think, distracted. I thought this was a different kind of compilation, when actually it is his 4 albums compiled on 2 CDs. But still, he is a great artist, and I'm very happy that I also got 2 more albums right here. Great buy. Next, and last but not least, Rumours, 1977 by Fleetwood Mac. This album needs no introduction. It's a very successful album. I think Fleetwood Mac's most successful album, and it's an absolute classic all the way. Beautiful songs here too. Dreams by Stevie Nicks, You Make Loving Fun by Christine McVie, Go Your Own Way by Lindsey Buckingham. And it's funny that this album managed to exist and be one of the best albums ever made, despite the fact that the members of the group were tangled in personal fights between themselves. I think Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham were fighting against each other due to the end of their relationship. And the same thing with Christine McVie and John McVie, who are also going through their personal hell. And I think it was also during the making of this album that Mick Fleetwood discovered that his wife was having an affair with his best friend. And it's a wonder that this album managed to exist despite so much conflict, so much drama, so much struggle. But that's how it goes with art many times. People get on the studio and magic happens. So it's a great buy, and it was a gap in my collection. For years I was completely ignoring this album. I heard it before many times, and I always said to myself, oh, this is easy to find, so I don't need to buy it. But well, one day I woke up and I said, I need this album, and here it is. Great buy. And here we go. Blue, 1985 by Double. Mahogany, the original movie soundtrack, 1975. Any Way You Like It, 1976 by Thelma Houston. Sons of the Gods, 1977 by Ripple. The Gamble and Huff Orchestra, 1978, and Mysteries of the World, 1980 by MFSB. Beware of the Beautiful Stranger, 1970 by Pete Atkin. Did She Mention My Name and Back Here on Earth, 1968 by Gordon Lightfoot. The United Artists Collection, released in 1993 by Gordon Lightfoot. Rumors, 1977 by Fleetwood Mac. So these were my buys for this week. And please remember, visit record shops, buy records. Music is life. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. There's more great content coming soon. Thank you.